Today we're going to be doing overrated or underrated every WWE superstar that's defected over to AEW. And we're going to do like the very notable ones. I know that there are some minor players that had times and stints in the WWE that went over to AEW to have more fruitful careers. We're not going to count those. And we're also not going to count the like really one-offs, like for example, MJF being a security guard for Samoa Joe that one time. And these overrated or underrated ratings are really supposed to be a gut check. It's supposed to be the very first thing that I think of when I see that wrestler. So let's go ahead and create some controversy, why don't we? But don't forget to subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications. If you are a wrestling fan, this is the channel for you, so go ahead and subscribe. All right, we're starting off with Adam Cole. Bay. Of course, you got to say the Bay. Okay, this is an interesting one because I kind of really got into AEW during his feud with Chris Jericho, which I thought was god awful, but currently he is in one of the most majestic storylines in all of professional wrestling with MJF. He has had some fantastic matches since he has joined AEW. I will say that as well. I don't think that he's hit the level of amazingness that he's capable of that we've seen in NXT Black and Gold. So I do believe overall, in terms of his work rate, he's been downgraded a bit compared to what he was doing in NXT Black and Gold. But in terms of his overall pecking order in the card, this feud that he has with MJF, well, actually, it's not a feud. Sorry, they're best friends. It's gonna be a feud at some point or another. I'm gonna put him in underrated still because I still think that there's a lot of mileage that they can get out of Adam Cole. He has not hit peak Adam Cole yet, baby. Next up, we have Bryan Danielson. I don't know. What do you want to call him? Don't get offended if I call them by the WWE names, okay? It's just what I know them better as. But Bryan Danielson in AEW has been, unfortunately, this start-stop project where he'll have an amazing match and get injured. He'll have an amazing match and get injured. So actually, kind of similar to Adam Cole, we have not seen peak Daniel Bryan for a sustained period of time, which was actually kind of unfortunately the same issue he faced over in the WWE. He just has not been able to keep himself healthy. That being said, man, that Iron Man match with MJF was a thing of beauty. Just a match that I want to go back and watch over and over and over again. Like Adam Cole, I still think that there's a lot of mileage left to Daniel Bryan and what he can bring to the table. I hope that they use him to elevate younger talent more like they did with MJF. So I will continue to say underrated in terms of how they're utilizing him. But again, it's this start-stop because of these injuries. Ooh, okay. Oh my God. Okay, so we're getting to this point. Okay, CM Punk. All right. Look, before he left because of this fight with the Elite, I would have said overrated. He was having pretty good matches, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think that he was the same CM Punk. Now, admittedly older, is slower. It's not his fault, right? Like father age is just gonna catch up to any of us, right? But since he's come back this second stint leading Collision, he has really turned Collision, and of course everybody else that's in Collision, but he really is the flag bearer of Collision. He's made it into like the best weekly wrestling show everywhere. Like I'm including WWE, AEW, Impact. Like Collision is amazing, and it's really on the back of CM Punk right now. So, oh my God, like I'm shockingly gonna go underrated here because I think that he is doing some fantastic things in terms of giving eyeballs to talent that wasn't really being used over on Wednesday night's Dynamite. So I'll say underrated, but like my God, like I really want to say overrated because of everything that's been happening over the last year and a bit with AEW, but purely out of like what's happening right now, like in this moment in time that I'm recording this, I'm gonna say underrated because Collision and what he's doing on Collision is great. Ooh, Jon Moxley, baby. Wild thing. Bum, 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 bum. You make my heart sing. Okay, so to me, and here's something that I say all the time, it's a tale of two halves. I have really not enjoyed Jon Moxley during this Blackpool Combat stuff because he just seems to get breathed on and starts bleeding. It seems to me like he has gone from somebody that was having like these fantastic gritty matches to somebody whose gimmick gimmick is just to bleed. He just exists to bleed. So again, I'm kind of doing like the swap, like the reverse of CM Punk, where I would have said CM Punk overrated earlier and underrated now. I would have said Moxley heavily underrated before he was putting on some amazing matches. But right now, I'm going to say overrated because like he's literally just on screen to bleed. To me, that's how I see it at least. Chris Jericho, oh my God. Okay, like what angle do I want to take here? I'm going to say overrated. Okay, so just bear with me because Chris Jericho is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. So this hurts. He is overrated to me because he seems to continue to get main event caliber TV time, and understandably so because he's incredibly popular. He's Chris freaking Jericho. But it seems to me that anyone he gets put in the ring with these days, he brings them down in terms of their work rate. I just don't find Chris Jericho matches highly entertaining anymore. The fact that the worst match in all of AEW Double or Nothing, in my opinion, was Chris Jericho versus Adam Cole. Adam Cole being in a snoozer of a match, unacceptable. And I just believe that Jericho's age is starting to catch up to him, and he's just not able to have these quality, amazing matches that he used to before, but yet he's still being put in positions as if he is capable of having those matches. So I'm going to say that Chris Jericho, the Ocho, is overrated right now. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know why I'm tripping here, but yeah, I guess he did leave WWE to go to AEW. He's just one of those that came back. He came back to the WWE. But I'm of the mind that his time in AEW was severely underrated. The fans turned on him very, very quickly. And don't get me wrong, I think a lot of fans are turning on him in WWE from time to time. I think he can drag on a lot with his promos and monologues. But I really didn't understand why fans were turning on him in AEW. Like, they really were just turning on him because they just didn't want him to be a babyface. At least that's what it felt like. But the matches that he was putting on was fantastic. I just don't think that he was fully appreciated by the AEW fans when they had Cody Rhodes. So I'm going to say underrated. Christian Cage is doing an amazing job right now. Hang tight with me, okay? He is severely underrated with what he is doing. He is doing a fantastic job at working with younger talents and working within his limitations. That is something that Chris Jericho needs to be taking notes with, okay? Chris Jericho should be doing what Christian is doing. He is helping elevate like the likes of Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, Wardlow, and he is doing it in a way where he, in his limitations of age, isn't limiting the younger talent in terms of what they're able to do. He is playing within his limits, and he knows what his limits are, and he's doing a great job right now in AEW. So I'm going to say that Christian is underrated. Oh, this one hurts me. Mr. Brodie Lee. Let me tell you, he is one of the folks that went from WWE to AEW and completely, like entirely reinvented himself and went from a perpetual mid-carder in the WWE to a bona fide main eventer with his character work over in AEW. That says a lot, because a lot of the folks that have gone from WWE over to AEW were either already main eventers over in WWE or had the capability to be main eventers in WWE, or maybe were main eventers in NXT or something along the lines of that. And then, they naturally fit well in the main event scene in AEW. But then we had Luke Harper, Brodie Lee, who was never really given any sort of proper main event singles opportunities in the WWE. And then he came over with an entirely different character, completely rebranded himself, repackaged himself, reimagined himself, and turned himself into one of the most interesting characters that AEW has ever had. That is an incredibly difficult thing to do. Just for that alone, I'm going to say that Luke Harper, Mr. Brodie Lee, highly underrated in the unfortunately short time that we had him in AEW. I think he was bound to be AEW World Champion. Oh my word. Okay. Jack Swagger, aka Jake Hager. What are they doing with him? Oh, like, What are they doing with this guy? I guess I will say overrated, because he came in with this hype, former world champion, being aligned with Chris Jericho, and like, what, he still gets screen time, and what all he is a lackey to Chris Jericho that wears a bucket hat. Like, get off my screen, man. Overrated. Oh, this is interesting. This is a really, really interesting take. Sting has done a phenomenal job, similar to Christian, at working within his limitations and helping foster and grow younger talent. He has done a great job in taking Darby Allin under his wing and has really helped elevate him by, with the Sting rub, like the iconic Hall of Famer Sting. I'm going to say that Sting, just for his ability to be able to nurture the talent of the future, I'm going to say that he is underrated. Also, he's still crazy. I don't know if you guys saw that ladder jump that he did to the table a couple of weeks ago. He's insane. Sting goes into the underrated category still for me. Yes, overrated. Still gets a giant pop anytime he comes out, but he does really nothing. I think the time of the Hardy Boys is done. Like, not just Matt. I think it's Jeff as well. Two of my favorites of all time, but I just don't think that they've got it in them anymore. I really, really don't. Overrated. Andrade el Idolo. Heavily, heavily underrated. He's one of the best workers in AEW right now. He is one of those folks that is getting a lot of limelight right now in AEW Collision, and rightfully so, because this man is a 4.5, 5-star machine. All right. We need to continue to get more Andrade. I know that he is capable of being in the main event scene, and hopefully he eventually gets that opportunity and that nod. There's still a lot of mileage left for Andrade and a lot of things to do in AEW. I'm going to say he's underrated. Okay. This is interesting. Okay. So we're getting a lot of these veterans that have either done a really great job at working within their limitations and helping foster the next generation, and those that haven't. I believe that Mr. Billy Gunn, daddy ass himself, is part of the folks that have done a really great job at helping younger talent get over, predominantly, of course, the Acclaimed. And he just shockingly fits really, really well there. He, regardless of his age, he's still able to have that youthful craziness of like the scissor me daddy ass, all of this stuff. It just works so well. He plays so well into it, and he's done a great job at helping elevate, of course, the fellas over and the Acclaimed. I'm going to say that Mr. Daddy Ass here, for the work that he's done, he's remarkable. He is underrated. Oh man, this is interesting. Okay, like, I mean, my gut says that, dude, I don't even know how to rate this. Mr. Dustin Rhodes, where do I even want to take this? I guess I will go, and I feel like I'm giving a lot of people underrated, but I'll go with underrated purely, honestly, because this is gut check. It's like the first thing that comes to your mind, purely because of that amazing match with Cody Rhodes that he had. There is no rhyme or reason why somebody of the mileage that's in the wear and tear on his body is able to have that good of a match with anybody, let alone one of the best matches of the year. Sure, they haven't done much with him lately, and I don't think that there's much left to do with him. I really believe that a lot of his angle and a lot of his allure was being in the same company with Cody Rhodes, and if that's not the case anymore, there's just not a lot of room to be able to properly utilize him in a way to get fans to care. I'll continue to go in the underrated route because I still cannot believe he managed to put a match on that was that good. We'll go underrated. Toni Storm, oh man. I'm gonna go with overrated because even though she's AEW Women's World Champion, you wouldn't know it and I don't even know if it's a fault of Toni Storm. I think it's just a fault of AEW and how they book their women, or absolute lack thereof booking their women. I think Toni Storm has a lot of potential, but they just kind of put the strap on her for the sake of putting the strap on her. There was very little in terms of story in build up for her to win this championship. It was a fart in the wind how she won this, and her reign so far is a fart in the wind as well. I'm going to say that currently Toni Storm is overrated. Ooh, FTR, These guys are just fantastic. I will say right now that I have a huge bias for FTR because I got to witness one of the greatest tag team matches of all time in person. These guys versus Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa DIY and NXT TakeOver Toronto, best 2 out of 3 falls. Oof, that match, absolutely incredible. Go back and watch it. But these guys are just keeping tag team wrestling alive. They're literally single-handedly carrying tag team wrestling on their back. These guys continue to be underrated in terms of what they're doing with the tag team division. Buddy Murphy. Whoo, okay. This is kind of like a similar situation to Andrade. He is just constantly putting banger after banger after banger after banger. But we don't see him getting those proper, single push opportunities that some of those other guys might be getting, like Andrade, because he is there with the House of Black. But again, you can put him in to any matchup and you're guaranteed to have must-watch television. That's what he is. He is must-watch television. Is he better off now in AEW than he was in WWE? I don't know. I think he's kind of in the exact same spot, honestly. But I still think that this man is an absolute wonderkin when it comes to putting on amazing matches. I'll say Buddy Matthews. All right, crucify me. He's underrated. Okay. All right. Athena, aka Ember Moon. I almost want to go overrated again, but for the sake of sticking with my story with Toni Storm, it's just like they're just not utilizing the women's division to any capacity. I know she's much better than what she's capable of doing. I really, really believe that. She is just not getting those opportunities. Again, now that I'm like talking it out in my brain, and that's kind of the point of this conversation, this solo conversation that I'm having in my brain, is to kind of work things through. And now that I say that, I almost now want to go underrated because I know she's capable of so much more, but they're not allowing her to do any of that. Okay, fuck it. Fine. I changed my mind. Underrated. Overrated. I like this guy. I like Ty Dillinger, Sean Spears, whatever you want to call him. But I thought that he kind of peaked and hit his peak in the WWE as the perfect 10. I don't think that he has really done enough in AEW to warrant a lot of the news that he was getting when he defected over to AEW. So I'm going to go overrated. I just don't see what he's done to really warrant anything aside from just being overrated. Oh my God, overrated. I'm done. Overrated. I'm going to go for overrated for Johnny Elite, Johnny Mundo, Johnny Nitro, Joey. He's not Joey Mercury. Anyways, he's got like a ton of different names. This is kind of an impossible one to rank because he very recently truly joined AEW. So we haven't really seen that much from him. So I guess I'll go underrated because I know that he's capable of having fantastic matches, but we haven't seen anything from him really in AEW television. So I'll go underrated. Miro. Oh my God. Talk about underutilized, underappreciated talent in AEW. And I know that I'm going underrated for a lot of these folks because I just don't think that they're being utilized to the best of their abilities over in AEW. And I think he's a great example of this. Miro, formerly Rusev, for some reason disappeared and wasn't utilized on TV for the longest time without any sort of rhyme, reason, or injury. And that's why Collision is so important and so valuable, and why it's important to have somebody like CM Punk being the flag bearer of that show, because now it's bringing eyeballs and giving opportunities to guys like Miro. Miro is so mind-bogglingly underused and underrated. I cannot believe that they are fumbling so hard with him. WWE honestly used them better. Overrated. Everything that I said for Matt Hardy, ditto, and maybe even twice as much for Jeff Hardy. Overrated. Oh my word. Remember what I was just saying about Miro? About like how like he just isn't being used? Where the hell is he? Like every time I tune into Dynamite, there's like a 1 in 10 chance that I'm gonna get a Keith Lee sighting. What the fuck? Why don't they use a guy like Keith Lee who is so incredibly talented? Again, I know this overrated, underrated is basically just turning into underrated. Everybody's underrated. But like, come on, like how can you argue with this logic? A guy that is this good not getting used, like you just kind of automatically go into underrated. Kyle O'Reilly, man, like I don't even think it's even fair to have him on here. He's done nothing in AEW because he's been injured for like the better part of almost like an entire year. I know he's amazing. I know what he's capable of over in NXT Black and Gold. We haven't seen it yet, so I know you guys are probably getting tired of me saying underrated, but what the fuck? I don't know. It's just how it is. It's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. He's underrated. All right, next we have Malakai. Malakai Black. Okay, all right. I'm kind of in the middle here, so I need to work things out in my head. He is the head of a faction. He gets all of the glitz, all of the glamour, the cool entrances. But in terms of great matches, Buddy Murphy has the better matches between all three of them, in my honest opinion. I do think it's great that they are the flag bearers for the trios division, but that division just like doesn't really properly fucking exist. Honestly, like I mean, maybe a couple of months ago it did, but like who the hell is in that division? It's just them. It literally is just them. Maybe I should say overrated for the House of Black as a trio, and because I think they're a cool faction, but they're really treated as this like trios team, but there's no one for them to really go up against that's like a legitimate trios team, in my opinion. I guess I'll go slightly overrated because I think he gets outshined by Buddy Murphy in that faction, so I'll go overrated based on that. Oh my god, he is Swerve Strickland. If he isn't an AEW world champion within the next year, I will vomit. He is so fucking crisp and so good in the ring. Dear God, he needs more opportunities in the main event scene. Like, I want him getting title shots. I want him being main eventing premium live events, pay-per-views, whatever you want to call him. This man, anytime he's in the ring, blows me away with how good and crisp he is in the ring. Underrated all day, every day. Even though I do believe that he gets properly showcased on Dynamite. He gets matches pretty much every single week, but every single week he knocks it out of the park. But yet it seems that he doesn't seem to move up the pecking order anytime that he wins or does anything awesome. Like, he just continues to ride the same coast. Tony Khan refuses to really pull the trigger on him and put him into higher profile feuds. So underrated. Wow, shocker, right? Ruby Soho, I actually think she's overrated. I don't believe that she is as amazing in the ring as the time that she gets on screen would maybe make you believe. In my opinion, I think when it comes to in-ring work, I think she is the worst out of the three members in her group, that being Toni Storm and Saraya. But she is really the one that gets the most screen time and the most matches. And I'm kind of just consistently underwhelmed by the quality of her matches. So overrated. Pac is underrated as well. I know that he's been in a bit of a hiatus, but has now been back, and he is just so good, like in terms of his in-ring ability. But this character that he has, the bastard, oh man, this is such an upgrade from what he was doing in the WWE. I think he can be so much better than they're allowing him to be. But even the opportunities that he's given on Ring of Honor or on AEW television, like, he blows my freaking mind. I guess I'll go underrated again. Saraya, aka Paige. This one hurts me because she's one of my favorite wrestlers ever. Like, seriously, she's one of my favorite female wrestlers of all time. But her time in AEW, let's call a spade a spade. It's been severely underwhelming, and the pop and the hype behind her debut on AEW was enormous, and she has not been able to deliver on that hype from her debut. So not even just overrated, I think heavily overrated in terms of her time in AEW so far. Oh, Mr. Cesaro of the Blackpool Combat Club. I love how he's being used in AEW, if I'm being honest with you. I love the fact that he was given the Ring of Honor strap. I love the fact that he is kind of like the flag bearer of the Ring of Honor brand. I think whenever he gets matches that are exclusively like for Ring of Honor, I think he knocks it out of the park every single time. I wish that he got more singles opportunities and wasn't just part of the Blackpool Combat Club, especially the last few months. Like, we only see him in multi-man matches because, again, he's in this feud with the Elite. He's part of the Blackpool Combat Club, yada, yada, yada. I want to see him in a proper singles program in AEW television. And I still think that whenever we get that, it's going to be fantastic. We haven't really gotten it yet. So I guess I'll go underrated, but I don't know. I don't even know if that's the right answer. Dude, it's fucking late at this point. All right. Like, my brain is turned into mush, but again, again, this is gut check, and this is telling me that he's underrated. And then we have Samoa Joe, and I think Samoa Joe is doing a fantastic job in AEW. I think it was a brilliant idea to put him in Collision, to be one of those to help elevate the Collision brand as a whole. I think that anytime that he gets put into a ring, I pay attention. He makes me care in every single match that he's in. He is still one of the most imposing, scariest figures in all of professional wrestling. He's in a much better spot right now in AEW than he was in the WWE, in my personal opinion. But there's still a lot of legs here. I think there's still a lot of legs, a lot of great feuds that he could be having that he hasn't really had the opportunity to be able to have. So, wow, shocker. I think 90% of these were underrated. All right, I'm done. Get out of here.